The Zodiac Killer is considered one of the most terrifying serial killers of the 20th century. During the 1960s and 70s, he spread fear across San Francisco with his horrific attacks. He would send letters to newspapers and the police, boasting about his murders and even challenging them with coded messages. After his first two murders, the killer remained silent for 6 months, but then he reappeared with another brutal case. It was July 4th, 1969, Independence Day in America. An 18-year-old girl named Darlene Ferrin and a 16-year-old boy named Michael Mageau were out in their car to buy fireworks. They noticed that a strange car was following them. To get rid of it, they turned into the parking lot of Blue Rock Springs Park. But the mysterious car followed them right in. At first, the stranger parked next to them. But after a few seconds, he reversed and drove away. Seeing this, Darlene and Michael breathed a sigh of relief. But that relief lasted only for a few moments. The same car returned again. This time, the driver blocked their car from behind. A man stepped out holding a powerful flashlight, which he shined directly on their faces. At first, they thought it might be a police officer. But in the very next moment, the man opened fire on both of them, then quickly got back into his car and drove away. Darlene died instantly, but Michael, though seriously wounded, somehow survived. A few moments later, 3 children nearby noticed the injured couple.
I think they're hurt bad. Should we check on them?
We gotta go get someone.
And called the police. Michael had seen the killer's face, which later helped the police create a sketch of the murderer. The most shocking part of this case came later that same night. At 12:40 a.m., the Vallejo Police Department received a phone call from an unknown man calling from a phone booth. Before saying much, he hung up. This was the first ever phone call made to the police by the Zodiac Killer. About 1 month later, on August 1st, 1969, the Zodiac Killer sent 3 letters to different newspapers. In those letters, he confessed responsibility for the Lake Herman murders and the Independence Day killing at Blue Rock Springs Park. To prove that he was the real killer, he mentioned specific details that only the police knew, such as which bullets were fired, how many shots hit, and what clothes the victims were wearing. Along with the letters, the Zodiac included an encoded message, a cipher, and demanded that it be published in the newspaper the next day. Otherwise, he threatened to kill more people. The cipher was sent to intelligence agencies for decoding, but at first, nobody could crack it. However, the next day, after the cipher was published in the papers, a couple from San Francisco managed to decode it the same day. The message read, "It is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild animals in the forest. But man is the most dangerous animal of all." In that same cipher, the Zodiac also wrote that he believed in the afterlife, and that the people he was killing would serve him as slaves in the life after death. After these letters were published, the Zodiac remained silent again for about 2 months. But then, he returned with another horrifying case. It was September 27th, 1969. A college couple was enjoying a picnic by the shore of Lake Berryessa. Their names were Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. They noticed a man walking toward them. He was wearing a black hood with a Zodiac symbol drawn on it. As he came closer, he pulled out a gun and demanded money and car keys. Brian handed over 75 cents and the keys, which the man returned a moment later. Then, at gunpoint, he tied both of their hands with rope, took out a knife, and began stabbing them repeatedly. Thinking both of them were dead, the Zodiac walked back to their car and wrote a message on the vehicle's door, including the place, date, time, and the type of weapon used. A fisherman nearby later found the couple in critical condition and immediately called for help. Both were rushed to the hospital, but sadly, Cecilia succumbed to her wounds, while Brian survived and gave the police a detailed description of what happened. That same night, at 7:40 p.m., the Zodiac once again called the police and described the entire attack himself. By now, the police had started noticing a clear pattern in the Zodiac's crimes. He only targeted young couples. The attacks happened mostly on weekends or around holidays. He struck either at night or during dusk when it was partially dark. After every killing, he would boast proudly, as if challenging the authorities. Most murders occurred at popular dating spots. The victims were usually in or near cars, and most of the locations were close to water. From these 7 patterns, investigators concluded that perhaps the Zodiac was either heartbroken in love or had a deep hatred toward women. since in 2 out of his last 3 attacks, the men survived. However, the police had no idea that the Zodiac's next target was about to break this very pattern. Just 2 weeks after the Lake Berryessa attack, the Zodiac killer struck again, this time in San Francisco itself. It was October 11, 1969, a cool evening in the city. A 29-year-old cab driver, named Paul Stine, picked up a passenger from the theater district. The man asked to be dropped off at Presidio Heights, an upscale neighborhood. Everything seemed normal, just another late-night ride. But as the taxi reached the destination, the passenger suddenly pulled out a gun and shot Paul Stine in the head. The killer then leaned over, took out a piece of Stine's shirt, and wiped the gun carefully to remove fingerprints. He then calmly stepped out of the cab and walked away into the night, as if nothing had happened. Moments later, 3 teenagers from a nearby house saw the entire scene from their window. They immediately called the police and gave a description. A white male, about 35 to 45 years old, wearing glasses and a dark jacket. Police patrol cars were dispatched immediately, and within minutes, 2 officers, Donald Falk and Eric Zelms, spotted a man walking near the crime scene. He matched the suspect's description, but due to a radio communication error, they had been told the suspect was African American. Because of this confusion, the officers let the man go after briefly questioning him, unaware that they had just spoken face-to-face with the Zodiac killer. But police got Zodiac's fingerprints from Paul Stine's car. A few days later, the San Francisco Chronicle newspaper received a new letter. Inside was a piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt and a message claiming responsibility for the murder. "I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington and Maple last night," sending a piece of Paul Stine's shirt as proof. This time, he threatened to attack a school bus. The threat caused panic across the area, and for the next several weeks, police started following all school buses closely. However, no such attack ever happened. Using the help of the children who had seen Zodiac that night, police created a new updated sketch and distributed it among all taxi drivers in the city. But this time, Zodiac appeared in a completely new way. Exactly 10 days after killing the taxi driver, on October 22, 1969, Zodiac called the Oakland Police Department and said that he wanted to talk to Melvin Belli, a well-known lawyer at the time, on a live TV talk show. It was Channel 7's talk show, and that day, the show began earlier than usual. After waiting for a while, Zodiac made the call, but disconnected before saying anything. When he called again, the second call lasted longer. During the call, Zodiac introduced himself as Sam. Throughout the show, he made about 35 calls, but only 12 of them were aired live. During these calls, the lawyer asked him a few questions, to which Sam gave strange and meaningless answers. Later, it was found out that this call was not made by the real Zodiac, because people who had actually heard Zodiac's real voice earlier confirmed that this was not the same person. Investigation revealed that the call had been made by a mental patient from Napa State Hospital. A few weeks after the TV show drama, the newspapers received 2 more letters from the Zodiac. Among these letters was an encoded cipher that he wanted republished in the newspapers. The first cipher had been cracked in a single day, but this new cipher was far more difficult and remained unsolved for the next 50 years. A few years ago, in 2020, 3 codebreakers using computer software finally decoded that cipher. In the decoded message, the Zodiac did not reveal anything about himself nor give any important clue. He only insisted that the caller who rang into the TV talk show was not him. However, the letters did give one useful clue to the police. In them, he threatened that he had built a bomb which lay in his basement. Across many pages of that letter, the only actionable detail was this: if he was telling the truth, it would mean the Zodiac lived in a house with a basement, not in an apartment. At that time, basements were not common in the Bay Area, so by claiming to have a basement, he may have inadvertently suggested that he did not live in the Bay Area. By saying he lived in a house with a basement, perhaps the Zodiac made a mistake. 5 months after those letters, on March 22, 1970, the Zodiac tried to kidnap a woman named Kathleen Johns on Highway 132, but fortunately, she managed to escape. When police showed Kathleen a sketch of the suspect, she immediately identified him. Over the next 4 years, the Zodiac continued to send many letters and ciphers, sometimes describing his murders in detail, sometimes writing movie reviews. In one letter, he even gave the location of a bomb, but police found no bomb at that location and no explosion ever occurred. His last letter was received on January 30th, 1974, in which he wrote his murder score in this way: Me equals 37 SFPD equals 0. The San Francisco Police Department said the Zodiac was exaggerating. By the Zodiac's own methods, the confirmed number of killings was only 5. Police and other law enforcement agencies, including the CIA, after deep research into the Zodiac's behavior and methods, concluded that the Zodiac was not an ordinary man, but someone with military-grade knowledge. Footprints found at crime scenes came from a wing walker shoe, which is normally sold in military supply stores. Additionally, his experience with cryptology and ciphers suggested he may have gained that knowledge during military service. Because the Zodiac had terrorized the whole country and was getting enormous attention, many people falsely claimed to be him, which made the police search even more difficult. At first, the police suspected Arthur Lee Allen. Many pieces of circumstantial evidence pointed to him: a military background, a watch with the Zodiac symbol, and testimony from some people. But Allen's handwriting and fingerprints did not match the Zodiac's. After many years in custody, he died in 1992. Another suspect was Richard Gaikowski, whose appearance resembled the Zodiac's, but again his handwriting and fingerprints did not match. In total, police questioned around 50 people as suspects, yet none matched the Zodiac's full profile. The case received enormous publicity, but the true identity of the Zodiac killer remained, and still remains, a mystery. No one could confirm who he really was, why he killed so many people, or what his true motive was beyond the afterlife story he sometimes hinted at. The Zodiac killer's name still remains a mystery in the official records. To this day, the case of the Zodiac killer stands as one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in American history. The Zodiac killer, the man who mocked the world.